When we say the word church, the image is almost always the same: a religious building, a Sunday service, and a congregation defined by passive attendance. But the Apostle Paul writes as a civic lawyer or an inheritance executor. He speaks the language of legal standing and public office. His letters focus on the mechanics of a governance, the specific rights of heirs, and the eventual co-reigning of those he is writing to. This gap between Paul's legal language and our religious traditions exists because the word church is an intruder in the English Bible. That word was placed into the text by royal decree. In 1611, King James I was terrified of a specific Greek word used by the biblical authors. To protect his authority, he mandated a translation that would neutralize the political implications of the original text, shielding his throne from the implications of a higher kingdom. That original Greek word in the text is ekklesia. To the Greeks, an ekklesia was a called-out governing assembly. It was a body of citizens summoned to a specific place to exercise legal and civic power. When Jesus told his followers he would build his own ekklesia, he was using a term that every listener associated with the halls of government. A first-century listener understood this as the establishment of a new governing body. In 1611, King James was commissioning a new English translation that would eventually bear his name. James sat as both the head of state and the supreme governor of the Church of England, merging political and religious power into a single seat. Translating ekklesia as assembly or governance was a direct threat to this structure. An accurate translation suggested that the people belonged to a kingdom and an authority that operated entirely outside the king's control. For a monarch, allowing the public to see themselves as a governing assembly was an act of political destabilization. James issued a documented instruction to his translators. The old ecclesiastical words are to be kept. This order effectively buried the civic meaning of the original Greek. The translators bypassed ekklesia and instead used the English word church, which stems from a different Greek word, kyriakon. While ekklesia refers to a body of people, kyriakon means imperial property or a state-sanctioned building. The mandate followed a pattern. Civic terms for an overseer or elder were swapped for clerical titles like bishop and priest. This preserved a strict hierarchy, ensuring that the authority of the altar was always aligned with the authority of the throne. This translation shift changed how believers viewed their own purpose within the text. This chart shows the linguistic slide that occurred. Language of a kingdom became religion, and a governing assembly became an institution. The result changed the believer's role from an heir being prepared for governance to an attendee focused on moral management. In an institution, maturity is optional, but in a governing assembly of heirs, maturity is the prerequisite for exercising authority, a requirement that fades when governance is replaced by religious membership. The concept of church was conditioned by history to protect kings by softening the language of kingdom authority. But the original text describes an ekklesia, a governing assembly of heirs under King Jesus. Reclaiming that definition means looking past centuries of political framing to find a role that is active, legal, and centered on governance.